I saw the most amazing movie last Friday night. I was just cruising around. I think it might have been on Facebook or whatever, and then I found out. I ran to this small little post that mentioned that David Lynch had produced a Werner Herzog movie, and I was not aware that. I mean, as major filmmakers, I'm sure their paths have crossed many times, but I was not aware that they had passed professionally. And anyway, that was a movie I definitely needed to find out. I'm surprised I didn't catch on to that movie when it was released sometimes in the early 2000s, I believe 2002. But be that as it may, I found out that, thank goodness, it was streaming on good old Tubi, where you can also see my movie, Wrestling Then and Now. But all self-promotion aside, this was a pretty amazing and disturbing work that I would definitely recommend. This movie has pretty much, I want to say almost, every actor who's ever been a part of some groundbreaking independent films. Everyone from Brad Dourif, who was, Wise Blood, and a number of David Lynch movies too, and of course Daniel Defoe, or no, not Daniel Defoe, Willem Dafoe. Daniel Defoe wrote Robinson Crusoe, but Willem Dafoe, of course, from The Last Temptation of Christ, and a number of other breakthrough independent movies like Antichrist, and then of course we have Michael Shannon, whom you may remember as Zod. And he's been in a number of breakthrough independent movies. Anyway, the movie starts out in San Diego, which is a place that I used to go to quite a bit. And especially when I would drive down to go to Tijuana, I'd stop by San Diego. And by the way, in my movie Wrestling Then and Now, there's an interview with Jeff Archer, who lived in La Mesa. And this movie takes place in La Mesa. My son, what have you done? And it looks pretty much, I'm not saying they shot at Chef's house, but it really does look like some of the places that I visited when I went to interview Jeff Archer and Dr. Death Arnold. But getting way off the point here, but the movie of course opens where Willem Dafoe, being the cop that he is, driving an assistant cop around, and they're talking just lighthearted stuff until finally they get dispatched to a hostage situation. So they show up there, and of course Michael Shannon has two, what we assume to be people being held hostage, and he already killed one person whom we found out was his mother, who, by the way, played by Chloë Sevigny. Of course, you may remember her as Mrs. Palmer in Twin Peaks, and he stabbed her with a sword. He stabbed his mother with a sword. Didn't do anything to the two other people who were there, and then he went next door where he supposedly had his hostages. And so Willem Dafoe has to get to the bottom of this, and he starts talking to people who knew him, and suddenly the movie goes from becoming a typical police drama into a very psychological and mythological journey into the minds unknown. And what's interesting, I found out both as I was watching this movie, that's why I love watching movies while you got your laptop here so you can look up all these fun facts, but this was actually based on a true story. And this was a fellow named Mark Yaworsky, who picked up an antique saber and he killed his mother, and he was also cast as Orestes in a production of the Greek tragedy The Eumenides, and which is the same play that Michael Shannon is cast in this movie. And he was eventually found not guilty for reasons of insanity, but the main screenwriter of this movie took Werner Herzog up to meet him, and Werner Herzog was very disturbed when he got up there because he saw that on the guy's wall he had a montage of things that really made an impression on him, and one of them was a picture of Klaus Kinski from Aguirre, The Wrath of God. And that disturbed Herzog enough to both want to make a movie and also to get out of there really quick. But we see that also reenacted too in this movie as well. But as Herzog put it, only about maybe 30% might be realistic. The rest of it, 70%, where they veered away from the source material. And as Willem Dafoe is talking to the people from his past, he meets the director of the pageant, or the director of the play, who is played by Udo Kier, whom you might remember from decades ago in the Andy Warhol movie Blood for Dracula. He shows up and he talks about how he was really getting into this part to a disturbing level, but he wanted a particular sword to use in the part where the main character of the play stabs his mother in the play. And so he takes them to an ostrich farm, which is where his Uncle Ted, played by Brad Dourif. And at this point, while we're looking for the sword, we get some interesting little asides from the Ostriches in that Werner Herzog way of his, where we see them just kind of galloping through the dust, through the desert. And then, of course, one of them actually takes Udo Kier's glasses, and they have to like rip it from the mouth of the ostrich. And Udo Kier says, "This is disgusting," and then points his finger at him and says, "Don't you ever do that again."
Don't you do that again.
Out the sword, and Udo Kier says that is not an authentic sword from the Grecian era, but Michael Shannon's character, Brad, I should say, doesn't care. He wants to use that sword. He also has a girlfriend, played by Chloë Sevigny, and one thing that happens when she visits him, the mother is just totally doting over her son, just totally just overprotecting, you might say. And, they never have a moment alone, and she tries to get them to want to move out of the house so they can have their own place and start off by themselves. And they go outside and he sees a house and he says, "Let's get that one." And she says, "You don't have any money." So he's like, you know what he's like? He's like in the tarot deck, you have the fool who's always like looking up, looking over the horizon, but he doesn't see that he's about to fall off the cliff, and this guy's about to fall off the cliff. And as far as what's motivating him, that's kind of a difficult thing. We know that his father died in a naval hospital, but Herzog doesn't really get into that much detail about his relationship with his father. We know that in the play, the reason the main character in the play killed his mother is because his mother killed Agamemnon, because she wanted to rule. So there was an actual motive there. In this case, what's the mystery of this movie is just trying to figure out what the motives are on this. I don't get the impression that he believes his mother killed his father in any kind of metaphysical sense. I'm not getting that impression. And, he travels the world. He actually goes to the river where Werner Herzog shot Fitzcarraldo. And he's with his friends, and they want to white water raft their way through this really rough river, and of course Herzog has always, most of his movies concern people who are really pushing themselves to the edge of their limit to the point where it might destroy them. And Michael Shannon suddenly doesn't want to go whitewater rafting. He doesn't want to push himself. He doesn't need to. In fact, it reminds me, I think it was the movie about the volcanoes, where Herzog made a movie about people who, go into volcanoes to study the volcanoes. And he even said himself, "I have no interest in going into a volcano." But he did make a movie about people going into the volcanoes. So you get the feeling that, you're trying to figure out what is motivating this guy. And when Willem Dafoe is talking to him, you get the feeling that Brad McCullum, that's the character's name, is on some kind of a deep spiritual quest, and he finds this old gospel record of some old-timey gospel singer, and he plays it for both his mother and for his girlfriend. And the mother, of course, she says, "Oh, that's great." She kind of agrees with everything, but his girlfriend just kind of like brushes it off. She's finding it a little bit disturbing.
I'm born to preach the gospel. I'm born
This is it.
to preach the gospel.
This is what I mean.
I'm born
It's the
to
real
preach
thing.
the gospel, and I sure do love my job.
And when Willem Dafoe comes around, he basically talks like he's like on some kind of a quest to see God, and then he rolls out a can of oatmeal, and of course it's the Puritan guy on the oatmeal, and he's like accepting this Puritan guy as God. He's treating him like he's God. So as far as the motive, you're kind of up a river without a paddle trying to figure out this guy's motive. But at one point, and I think this might be the key to understanding it, and it's toward the end of the movie, he has this basketball, and he's looking at San Diego, the city of San Diego, and he declares San Diego the city of God. Yes, San Diego is the city of God. San Diego is a really interesting place, I must say. That was where the Truth Seeker magazine, a Free Thought magazine, was based. It's like right next door to Tijuana. There used to be a Navy base there. I don't know if it's still there anymore. But I thought I heard that they closed it down. But it was like a big place for the Navy. Anyway, I never quite looked at it as a city of God, but Brad McCullum certainly looks at it as the city of God. And he takes the basketball and he puts it in like almost a dying tree. And he says, one day, some young person may find that ball and take it and go out and become like a big basketball star. You know. And, of course, Chloë Sevigny just kind of like humors him. But toward the end, finally, Willem Dafoe gets his man, and he arrests them. And but he says, before he goes, he just has one request. He wants them to tell me what happens with that basketball. For some reason, that basketball is very important. And then at the end, we look at the city of San Diego, we see the tree with the basketball, and lo and behold, some kid comes up, sees the basketball, and takes it. And, Herzog specializes in these little moments that may actually, in fact, be big moments, but you got the feeling that this character had a lot going for him internally, and he just wanted to pass that on to a different generation, whatever that might be, and that basketball represented what he wanted to pass on to a different generation. And so he took the ball and took it to points unknown. Anyway, the irony of this movie, especially if you go back and read the real-life story that inspired it, is almost unbearably perfect. In the ancient play, Orestes is acquitted. He is acquitted of killing his mother because she killed Agamemnon. And in modern law, Yavorsky, the one that Brad McCullum is based on, was also found not guilty by reasons of insanity. And in both cases, the verdict hinged on a kind of supernatural intervention, divine justice for Orestes, and a psychiatric testimony for Yavorsky. Both men killed their mothers, and both were, in their respective frameworks, declared not fully responsible. So while this movie is on Tubi, I definitely recommend seeing it. I mean, David Lynch produced it, yes, and in a way, if I wanted to, I could see some Lynchian trademarks in there, but really, he was just a producer. This is a Herzog film through and through, and he had a difficult time trying to find somebody to back up this project because it was so strange and ultimately kind of depressing, but kind of very meditative and really stimulated the brain cells, let's put it that way. And so I'm glad that David Lynch crossed paths with Werner Herzog and produced this movie. So I definitely recommend that everybody stop what you're doing now and go watch My Son, What Have Ye Done? Streaming now on Tubi and fine streaming services. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching Psycho Cinema Therapy Theater. And if you enjoyed this little aside into the world of David Lynch and Werner Herzog and want to hear other reviews, then please, by all means, like and subscribe to this channel. And we will see you next time on Psycho Cinema Therapy Theater. See you in the dark.